Welcome. With me, Security Plus exam prep course, our little guided self-study course. Domain 1.2, and I've broken it up into 4 parts so I don't have one massive video. Application service attacks. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the multiple choice format of teaching and do that for several slides, and then at some point we're just going to do the definitions just as a matter of time. The reason I'm doing the multiple choice is the current CompTIA Security Plus exam is big on multiple choice. So the more familiar you get with it, the more practice you get, the better chance you have of passing it on the first go around. Alright, so denial of service, sending so many connection requests that a network server is overloaded and cannot function correctly. So it's like the radio shows where you dial in, and if you're the the 20th caller or whatnot, it just lights the phone lines up and basically locks it up so nobody else can get in. But users can't get to a company website. The news reports that they are under electronic attack. So there's some hacktivists out there. We could say like anonymous. Maybe somebody has done something bad in anonymous or lulsec, or somebody threatened to go after them. Sometimes it's going to happen in advance, right? Anyway, obviously, because this is teaching, that it is C, denial of service. But let's look at why the other ones are wrong. Injection, that's injecting malicious code into somebody else's software. Man in the middle, it's basically eavesdropping, in between two parties. So you have two endpoints, two services, two servers, two endpoints, and someone is in the middle listening to the traffic going by, whether they've got Wireshark or whatnot going on there. D, replay. I don't know if we've seen any spy movies where one of the characters used a tape recorder or recorded a touch-tone phone and then played back the recording and got the same result. The computer heard the tone and responded the same. So we can capture keystrokes or data and then play them back, whether that's to gain access or whatnot. All right, so we're trying to figure out why the other answers are wrong, so you have to be at least familiar enough with the terms to know what category they belong in. I mean, is it a type of antenna? Is it a security philosophy? Is it a type of social engineering? And that way you can at least rule them out and be more confident of your correct answer. Moving on. Okay, DDoS, distributed denial of service. Basically, they brought some friends along to the party. So instead of one server, one bad server, creating problems, one endpoint creating problems, it involves hundreds of bots, robots. Basically, those are hacked machines or hacked servers, and they can even use those for Internet of Things. If you can get enough Internet of Things, right, and these are like home appliances these days that have an IP address, you can actually get a couple thousand of those things together and cause some trouble now. So basically, it's just an amplification, a large-scale attack. DDoS. DNS poisoning. So I like the joke. It's always DNS, right? So domain name server, domain name service, right? Really get familiar with DNS. If you're doing anything cyber, anything network based, I mean, no DNS forwards and backwards. That's one of the times I might go down the rabbit hole on a topic, really dig into DNS. Pull up some 5-minute YouTube videos, learn what you can about it. Pass the hash. I would say that's a kind of a replay attack. So if you have a hashed password and you can pass that along, sometimes you don't have to decrypt these things. Sometimes you can just pass it along in its encrypted form, and the validating server or service goes, okay, that's good, and that's good. The ID looks good. There's our DDoS on C. Address resolution protocol. So I would really spend some time and dig up ARP. Basically, for DNS and ARP, you're trying to fool the requester into thinking that somebody else has that particular name or IP address when they shouldn't have it. So it's a bogus name or a bogus address being passed off as the real deal. So I'd spend a little bit of time looking up DNS and ARP. Pull up a couple of 5-minute videos, pull up an article, because that's some important stuff to know. Hopefully you've done a little bit of networking or network plus sort of activities, and this seems familiar to you. Man in the middle, and you can always throw the word attack, almost always throw the word attack after these. Man in the middle, attack, right? So it's intercepting, reading, and or modifying communication between two computers. I think Burp Suite would be an application that could do something like this. Let's see what we have. Buffer overflow. So, both thinking of it as hardware and software, there's buffers. There's places to store data while it's in the process of being processed, right? Buckets to store it. And if you can overflow the buckets, same as overflowing a bucket of a water, right? It can cause some problems or some havoc. And if you really know what you're doing, when you overflow a buffer, you can tell where the data is going to go and how to parse it so that it can cause the most damage or accomplish something malicious. 0 day, I think that's coming up in a minute. A lot of these alternative definitions are going to be within the same video. So 0 day means that there's an exploit that the good guys don't know about. And a lot of national security agencies like to hang on to some 0 day exploits, and if somebody that they want to hack is using that particular piece of software, they really don't want that thing patched. They want to leave it unpatched so they can get in there, but that's a risk overall. Everybody's at risk there. Amplification is trying to get the most bang for the buck. So you're amplifying an attack. You're trying to get a greater result. Buffer overflow, we talked about that for a hot second. Cross-site scripting, past the hash we covered. IP spoofing I think we covered. Cross-site scripting, we're going to get into some detail here shortly. Buffer overflow. This should probably just be a definition. Injection. This is a good. This could work as a quiz question. A hacker inserts his own commands into a running program, taking control of a server. Injection. That wouldn't be a bad definition there. MAC spoofing. That's along the same lines as DNS or ARP poisoning, or the other word is spoofing. And into definitions. Cross-site scripting. Here's one of the things you want to look for the exam is any of these 3 or 4 letter acronyms. Really try and beat those into your head using flashcards or whatnot, right? You don't want to be on the test going XSS. What the heck was XSS? So X, the cross-site scripting, yeah. Another one that you're going to want to spend some time on, memorizing the abbreviation and looking up the differences. So what can we say? We can say that this is web-based. It's a web type thing, a web type of attack, right? And what happens with web? We're either trying to steal, authentication, or we're trying to inject some malicious commands, right? So probably we need to get up a video that gets in depth on CSRF. I'll be honest, I've taken Security Plus 3 times, and I don't know that I could lecture for 20 minutes on this topic. So it's something to look into. The thing about it is because so much is web-based, you have to pick your battles. You have to pick what you're going to memorize, what you're going to work on. And yes, this is just for the exam, but I think social engineering and web would be a couple of things. And of course, knowing the OSI model to some degree and knowing how the internet works is important. So pick your battles, see if there's a few things that you can delve into. Privilege escalation, I mean, once you've got your basic little, footprint or toehold in there, we want to escalate our privileges. So if you can get into a worker's machine, then you want to upgrade and get onto the server, and then you want to be, whether it's root or whether it's system admin. So we're always looking to escalate privileges if you're a hacker. Address Resolution Protocol. So ARP, that's another 3-letter. Local area network, LAN should be fairly obvious. MAC table. And if I remember right, on CompTIA's basic guideline for the domains, didn't they have several acronyms at the end, like 50 or so different acronyms, if I remember on that? But anyway, these would be some things that you would want to add to a list of acronyms to memorize, just so that you're not, getting hung up on them on the exam. Amplification. And doesn't this happen in combat? Like I don't know if this would be the correct definition, like a sniper or a small team that's just basically wreaking havoc and causing more damage than you would think for their size. So think of an analogy on that. So we're trying to, well, if you're a bad guy or if you're a good guy looking at it from the bad guy's point of view, how can you create the most havoc or the most damage with the least amount of resources? And there's some things that are known to tie up bandwidth, like if you pull down a table from a server, right, a database table, and you say, hey, send me a database table. I mean, back in the day, you could get some of the network devices to share their table of who they're connected to and who which that device is connected to, and so on. And just one little command, dumping the results of a table could be just I don't know, megabytes of data. What do I know? But just a just a ton of data, and transferring that ties up a lot of bandwidth. So basically, you shut down the availability by transferring a lot of data by asking, hey, just send me everything you got in your table. That'd be an idea of, most bang for the buck for causing trouble. Traffic. I'm part Italian. Diverting internet traffic from legitimate servers towards malicious ones. So poisoning the address resolution. So you're trying to get to Google, but you wind up someplace else. That's legitimate. No, I can't fix it. All right, MITB, another one that you're going to want to memorize. Trojan, again, something that looks innocuous or helpful that's actually malicious. And notice I threw down payment card industry. So you probably want to have an idea what PCI is and PII, personally identifiable information, right? So there's legalities, there's laws, there's guidances on these sort of things. So PCI isn't a bad thing to look up if you have a spare minute. And where are we at? 13. Let's see if there's any more. 0 day. We talked about that very quickly. Basically, it's an exploit that the good guys don't know about yet, right? And I hear those are worth a couple of bucks on the black market. Everybody would love to have a 0 day. Get in there, and there's no patch for it yet. So one of the reasons to keep up with your patches, because as soon as the company that's providing the software or your whoever's providing your security learns that there's a vulnerability, they're sending out a patch to fix it. Yeah, it's a nasty thing to have. Replay. Okay. All right, I think that's where we're at for this video. I'll continue to add more. I'll take a look at the Mosley and Quizlet, and see if we've got some of the test terms up.